Hi, I'm Iris Bincovich, the CEO of InnoCan Pharma, and I invite you to hear my interview on Professionally Cannabis.
Where do they go, the smoke rings I blow each night? Oh.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Professionally Cannabis. I'm your host, Oscar Hausman, and with me, although not with me, as you very well know by now, is Johnny Weiser. Today, we've got a very interesting guest on the pod. Imagine if train spotting met CBD. Well, it's not quite like that, but you haven't heard anyone else talking about injecting cannabinoids, have you? Johnny, who do we have today?
It's an interesting comparison, and for today's episode we have Iris Bincovich, CEO of InnoCan Pharma. Amongst other things, they are developing an injectable CBD pharma product which will be able to be used on patients with a range of conditions. Iris talks about epilepsy, amongst others. A really interesting concept, and one that we've not heard on the pod or perhaps even outside.
Yep, so without meaning to get too punny, let's shoot it in. Let's inject some audio. Let's put this podcast in our veins and play the clip.
Where do they go, the smoke rings
I'm pleased to announce that joining the Professionally Cannabis Podcast today is Iris Bincovich, CEO of InnoCan Pharma. Based out of Israel, the team had the honour of ringing the bell to open the markets to mark their listing on the Canadian Securities Exchange from the comfort of Tel Aviv Beach. Not a bad setting at all.
Hi Iris, so glad to have you on here, and for our listeners at home, Iris is actually in quarantine, so if you're feeling a little bit feverish during the recording of this podcast, listeners, make sure to disinfect your ears and stay tight. So Iris, welcome to the show. Can you tell us what led you to the plant?
So, speaking here from Israel, everything is safe for now. And I and all the team come from a background of pharmaceutical industry. I myself have a degree in chemistry from the Technion in Israel, and my focus on business career was in managing companies in the OTC, cosmetic, and dermal sectors. So I have over 20 years of experience in regulation, requirements, active ingredients, efficacy, worldwide regulation where it's needed, import, export. So this is what I bring to the table regarding InnoCan. And the company, the basic and the essence and the valuation of the company is based on our pharmaceutical products. We work with the Hebrew University in Jerusalem to develop a new, enhanced, efficient delivery system of cannabinoid, and I'm actually talking about our injectable. So I'm sure all our listening ask ourselves why to inject. We can take it orally, we can smoke, we can vape. There are different kinds of methods. But everybody knows that taking orally, 80% of the cannabinoids are being destroyed by enzymes of the liver. So actually we get 20 to 15%. And this depends what we ate, what we drank. A lot of times we hear people say sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And so this is one topic. The other topic is regarding dosage. We don't have, when we take it, we smoke it or we take it in oil, we are not sure exactly about dosaging. So to make a long story short, let's say we would have in 3-5 years a kid with epilepsy. Everybody knows that GW have an FDA drug for epilepsy. So instead of having a seizure and somebody administer it, you could have a smartwatch, which is existing technology, a pump like insulin pump connected to the body. So once the seizure starts, the watch can signal the pump to inject specific amount of CBD, which will going to be locked in a capsule inside to the body. The body is going to open and deliver a specific amount of CBD directly to the blood.
So does that mean, and here's maybe where my knowledge is lacking, but I've heard of taking CBD as a preventative for the cause of seizures, but I've not heard of using CBD to provide relief or to stop a seizure mid-flow.
Sort of like an EpiPen, it sounds like.
Yes, it can be delivered an EpiPen, it's a shot by a pump, and it's going to be specific amount delivered to the blood. But this is one, and then we would have a capsule that would be released immediately. But going on to your question, we can say it's a multi-layer capsule or a capsule it's a liposome, but it's a type of a capsule that would actually have control release. So for example, if we have a chronic pain, you can have an injection once in a period, and through the whole period, a consistent amount of cannabinoid are going to be released into your body. And what is really unique, we can combine this with other medicine molecules. So we can do combination when we reduce let's say, steroids. Everybody gives a shot of steroids when you have back pain and severe pain. And steroids are excellent and very effective. However, they have high toxicological effect. So imagine if we could combine in one liposome CBD and steroid, and we reduce the amount of steroid below the toxic level. So that's what I say in the beginning. We are developing a new way of delivering. This is not suitable for all indication, but a lot of people are researching the benefit of the different cannabinoids. We give them a current system. You can have sustained release, immediate release, control release in combine. So this is one aspect of the company where THC might be involved in the future.
And I'd like us to sort of keep a little bit of focus on the injection side of things. I think it's a really interesting concept that you guys have got going on. I know you mentioned epilepsy before. From your research and other studies that you guys have been doing internally and in conjunction with other research institutions, this delivery mechanism of CBD and other cannabinoids, what conditions, illnesses do you see it really being most suitable to? And then as an extension of that, I'd also like to get a better feel from you about the user experience. Are you guys envisaging this injectable delivery mechanism to be something that more often than not is taking place in a medical facility? Is this something that users or potential users are easily able to use in the comfort of their own home?
So again, it's an excellent question. I think as a normal people, everybody is afraid of needles, but people who have diabetes, they use it on a regular basis. And if this would eventually be used in kids with epilepsy, and they can run freely and not be afraid of falling down or having a seizure, or eliminating the seizure when it starts, and it will give them freedom. So everybody would wear this pump and they get used to the shots. So we're not talking about, for having fun or reducing anxiety. We're talking about more severe cases. A kid with epilepsy, can have a seizure in the middle of train or anywhere, in the day, in the night. So when it can be self-sustained and you can keep it calm, it's a real advantage. It's a real advantage. People with chronic pain, if they know that they have a shot once a period, and then they feel much better. So there is a certain percentage of the population that would use this. I don't see it being in a nurse office, but again, it depends on the indication. It should be home use, injection like an EpiPen or by a pump. But I think eventually, as we're developing a platform that can be utilized to numerous of indications, it can be for pain relief, for epilepsy, for horn, wherever the cannabinoids are benefit. The professor from the Hebrew University who's leading this is Professor Chezi Bernholz, who already developed a drug. It's named Doxil, DOXIL, that it's an anti-cancer drug for Johnson & Johnson. So he actually not just have experience in the science space, he has experience in actually going through all the FDA requirements and commercializing this. So this is a great asset for us working with somebody that had done this before. It's not as similar, but similar conditions.
Well, on the similarity point, actually, because something when I heard about injectables, which we haven't discussed, but I thought might be pertinent, based on Doxil being an anti-cancer drug, there's clearly some you've worked with oncology in the team. Certainly, there's pretty good early evidence that cannabinoids can have anti-cancer, anti-tumor effects in vitro, at least. And it seems to me like one of the big questions there is, okay, well, how do we get such a concentration of cannabinoids as we can get in a Petri dish into a human? And to me, injecting cannabinoids towards cancer sites seems to be that method of achieving that high concentration. Yeah. Is that on your roadmap?
The first few months in the project was actually a ability to load high concentration of cannabinoids into the capsule. So this is exactly what the team was challenged to have ability to inject and provide therapeutic effect. So I'm happy that we have managed this milestone. Eventually, the application field would be determined by the cooperation, joint venture, or licensing with the big pharma companies. Because, the cannabinoids offer benefits to a lot of indications. We are developing the delivery system, occurrent, release, control, and we have limited budget, so we are checking on just several specific models. But certainly in the future, once the right partner would join us, we are open to every possibilities.
And I kind of want to understand how you got started in this, because it seems to me that an injectable, I mean, from my limited knowledge of pharmaceutical manufacturing.
I thought you were going to say from my limited knowledge of injecting.
That too, but that's made in sterile conditions, the most stringent GMP. It seems very hard for a startup to go from 0 to level 1 ISO clean rooms. How did you decide to jump into the deep end there?
Okay, so let's go again. The team brings high experience in pharmaceutical industry worldwide. Our chairman, who's an active chairman and one of our founders as well, he comes from Teva. Teva is the biggest generic pharmaceutical drug company worldwide. So everybody is in the team. It's coming from pharma. But when we went to the university project, we knew that we are going to have 2 different segments in the company as well.
Now, across the industry, there have been many interesting and different ways in which companies have raised money. And I understand that back in 2018, sort of long before the listing on the Canadian Securities Exchange, you went down the crowdfunding route. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. How did you do it? How long did the process take? And what commitments were you making to initial investors?
So, as you hear by now, we try to be very innovative in everything we do. So we started, the company was established in October 17. And first of all, we raised money, from friends and family. And then we decided to be actually the first Israeli company to do equity crowdfunding. So actually what it means is that the public invested in the company. They didn't get a share of a cream or a spray. They got shares in the company. This platform was approved recently in Israel, and we decided to utilize this, eventually sharing our art of listing at CSC, the Canadian Stock Exchange, by the end of the process. And luckily for us, we managed. No, it's not luck, it's hard work. So regarding crowdfunding, the bottom point is 600 investors put to $1.4 million Canadian, and this happened after 45 days, which on them I had between 20 and 40 calls with potential investors. We used the Facebook as a promotion, bringing such sophistication and pharma aspect to the arena of the cannabis, which was mainly in growing, extracting. So, and having the first company to do equity crowdfunding, we were in the news in Israel everywhere. So we managed to be very successful in this. private company. We were a public company, not listed. The same time, me and the team, we flew to Calgary in Canada and established InnoCan Pharma Corporation, a Canadian entity. And then we started preparing our prospectus. Luckily for us, we got an investment of 4 million Canadian dollars just before from European LP. And this happened just before we submitted our prospectus. And eventually, we were the first Israeli company to do an IPO, not an RTO, on the Canadian Stock Exchange in Canada. And very happy from this process.
Well, it sounds like quite the journey going from crowdfunding on Facebook to getting listed on the CSE. And I'd like to sort of ask a question around that. So you mentioned that the majority of the sort of initial 600 investors came from Facebook. For $1.4 million, that's sort of an average investment of over $2,000. Do you think this is perhaps a new route that other cannabis businesses might be able to take?
I think it's a new way of raising money, and it enables people, to put low amounts. So with a quite low investment, you can have some shares in startup. In Israel, it became quite popular after we succeeded and everybody was aware of this system. It's another way, the modern tools and the digital way allows us to do a lot of new things, also in investment. So we go with the modern one and we utilize and take advantage of the new tools. A lot of people, yes, they invested digitally after they heard about the company. People
How did they do? Did they make money?
They make money, some of it. Now it's challenging everywhere. So we hope we go over the coronavirus situation and see the sunny day following. So now the stock exchange are challenging worldwide. Life goes on eventually. All the stock exchange would see a brighter day. It happens every few years. There is a catastrophe and then everything is growing. Now we are in the middle of one.
Great. Well, I think that's about all we've got time for. So Iris, thank you very much for joining us on Professionally Cannabis. It's been wonderful having you.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
And we hope you get safely out of your quarantine.
Yeah. Counting the days. Half is already behind me.
Where do they go? The smoke rings I blow.
We hope you enjoyed that episode, listener. I certainly found it fascinating hearing about injectable CBD. Who would have thought? And if you did find it interesting, fascinating, or entertaining of the sort, I would urge you please to like, share, subscribe, and leave us a nice comment. Anything you can do in this respect really helps propel the podcast along and helps us bring you more insightful interviews from leaders across the world. But without further ado, I wish you a great rest of the day wherever you are. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Hello, please take me above, take me with you.